All right, welcome to Creative Mornings, everybody. Every seat in the house is full. I love it. That's great. Thank you for coming out to Silk Moth stage. It's always nerve-wracking to have an outdoor venue in May in Virginia. I thought it'd be a safe bet, but after the rain last week, I was a little bit nervous. Is anyone here at Creative Mornings for the first time? Well, applause, welcome. I'm glad you're here. It's always this cool. It's always this very creative out here. Creative Mornings is the world's largest face-to-face creative community. There are over 240 chapters in over 70 countries all around the world, and we are one of them. We are really proud to create a space for creatives to gather, connect, and be in community. And before you say, I'm not creative, we believe everyone is creative. So that's what we do once a month. Little heads up, we are about to take our summer break and we'll then return in August, but Maggie's going to tell us later some fun events we have planned in the meantime, so we can still connect and be together. Today's theme is create, which is the most creative mornings topic I can think of. And there are so many ways we can take it, so I'm really excited to hear what our speaker today, Alli, has to say about create. I could also say a lot of things, but I'm not going to, because I always give these long speeches and I feel like that is not called for today. But one thing I have recently created and I'm really proud of is a book. It's called It Takes a Valley. Thank you. Currently crowdfunding, so if anyone has a rich uncle, please send him the link so we can support it. I have over $8,000 to go in less than 3 weeks. But yeah, it's been an act of creation that has taken 10 years of work and 2.5 years of writing. And I was talking to Amelia earlier that we always have this idea that when we create, it should be fast and it should be beautiful and better than we ever expected. And of course, tremendously successful by all measures of financial success, recognition, Oscars, being written up in the news. And we all know that creation it can go that way, maybe for like 1% of everything we touch. And the other 99% are creating something while nobody's watching, and creating something that no one else might ever see or appreciate, and you're just creating sometimes for the sake of creating, which is why I'm really excited to be at Silk Moth stage, because it actually provides the literal space for creations to come to life and to bring people together to create. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to our speaker today, Alli Huber, who I can't believe I hadn't met before, because now that I know you and I know everything you do in the world of theater, not just here in the area, but around the country, to professionally produce theater is absolutely amazing. And I'm just so thrilled you call the Valley home and that you are part of our creative community. Thank you for having us. For those who don't know, I have 2 fun facts for you. This is Alli's house. This is where she lives. This is her family's probably inside being told to be quiet and not make a sound. Or they're having breakfast behind this beautiful backdrop. I don't know. But this is where she lives, so she gets to wake up here every morning, hear this stream, and look out onto the mountains in the sun. So thank you for opening not just your theater, but your home to us and welcoming us in. And the second fun fact, for those who haven't picked up on it yet, our once very regular attendee, October here, drove down from Maryland this morning for 3 hours to be at this Creative Morning. So Thank you. I'll send you the dates for the remainder of the year so you can plan your books accordingly and podcasts and be here for us and with us. All right, and next, I would like to invite Alli to read the manifesto and walk us through a little creative activity. Give it up for Alli Huber, everybody.
Thank you. So to clarify, I'm going to read the manifesto, but my colleague Sarah is going to do the activity.
Even better.
Even better. Okay, here's the manifesto. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in hugs and high fives. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. That's a really nice manifesto. Hello, everybody. I wasn't going to start here, but I think I need it this morning, so I'm going to offer it as well. Every year, a sort of motto for the year finds me. The first year was 2016, when the motto that found me was, "This year I will not make art, I will let art make me." And this year's is grace, grounding, grit, gratitude. And I am feeling all of those things a lot this morning as I think about talking to all of you. I also want to apologize that I'm going to be reading a little bit. I've rewritten this 3 times, and the last time was last night. So here we go. Hello, and welcome to Silk Moth Stage, my dream. I am so grateful that everyone is here. Having creative mornings has long been something I've wanted to have here, and it's happening. It's very exciting. This morning's theme is create, which is such an active, forceful verb. Like, get out there and create. Make something happen. Take initiative. It kind of reminds me of a conversation that I had with a colleague who came up here from North Carolina for one of our shows a couple of years ago. And he's also a theater maker. And after the show, he said, "I love this. This is exactly what I want to make where I live. Can I do this?" And I was like, go for it. And then later, I thought, it's terrible advice, actually. Because what I heard in his voice was initiative. He wanted to go out and make this happen. I didn't make Silk Moth happen. It was an invitation that I said yes to. Silk Moth has taught me to listen in a deeper way for invitations to creativity. And that's the story I'd like to share with you today. Now, I have done projects from initiative before. I'm a type 1 on the Enneagram, so I see wrong in the world and I go fix it. I'm really good at working really hard and making things happen. Those projects, though, more often than not, are exhausting, frustrating, slow. There's so much effort in initiative. So the story today is about the opposite. The story today is about invitation. They are also often exhausting and always inconvenient, but they're a gift. So, taking you back to the spring of 2021, I had super insomnia for months. I've always struggled with insomnia. Sleeping is one of many things that I'm very bad at, despite loving it. But this was at another level. It wasn't just that I was having trouble falling asleep and staying that way. It was like I would lay in bed and feel like my whole body was vibrating, like I was full of 10,000 bees. It was not great. And I went to my doctor, as one does. I tried medication and meditation, neither of which helped. I did a lot of things. And finally one day, and I don't know why, again, maybe an invitation, I thought of this woman, Alli Huber, who runs a business as a spiritual director here in Harrisonburg. She wasn't somebody I knew really all that well, and I didn't know what spiritual direction was, but I was out of ideas. So I reached out to her. I should warn you, this is where this story gets very woo. I grew up on a commune, so it feels kind of like regular life to me, but if your mom didn't keep her razors sharp by putting them under a pyramid, I'm so sorry if this makes you uncomfortable. When I met Chris, I said, okay, I don't know what spiritual direction is, I don't know if you can help me, but I have 1,000 bees in my chest and that seems unpleasant. And she said, well, okay, let's talk about this. Where do you feel them in your body? Does their buzzing change over time or throughout the day? Are there times when they seem more insistent? And she listened in the most deep way that I've ever experienced. When I'm directing a play, I feel like I'm listening to the actors with my entire being. I can sometimes look at somebody and be like, when you said that, I think you had an impulse to stand up, didn't you? And they're like, yeah, how did you know? Like, because I listened. I have never had anybody listen to me in that way before. I've always said directing is the art of listening, and it turns out that that applies to spiritual direction as much as play direction. Chris asked me a lot of questions, many of which seemed sort of random or unrelated. I was like, no, we need to come back here to the bees. And finally she said to me, it sounds to me like this is some kind of creative energy, an invitation for you. I want to give you an assignment. The next time those bees show up, I want you to say in your full voice, like you're talking to another person, what do you want to make? It sounded strange. As I said, nothing else was working and the risk seemed low. So the next time I was lying awake and filled with buzzing, I did exactly that. I said, what do you want to make? And what popped into my head immediately was a text conversation that I had had with an actor friend about a month earlier. This porch that I'm standing on is not original to the house. We used to have a porch that was all at this top height, but like the footprint of the whole thing. And it had this railing that went like all the way around. And then it had this giant, horrible shrubberies that looked like they came from a Radisson hotel across the front here. And if you wanted to get into the house, you had to walk all the way around there and all the way up the side. And like people couldn't find which door to go in. It was very unwelcoming. I hated it. So also the porch was old and falling apart. So when we decided to replace it, I said, I don't want it to be like that old porch. I'm gonna make a new porch. Fun story. I'm bad at many things. One of them is every visual art ever invented. But I got it in my head that I was gonna design this new porch myself, not knowing anything. I spent hours on House, I doodled, I read Architectural Digest at the library. I got nowhere. Then one morning I woke up from a dead slumber, grabbed the notebook I keep by my bed, and sketched this. So I designed this porch that you see now, because I wanted it to be open, welcoming. I hired one neighbor to take the old porch off the house, another neighbor to build this porch. That's the benefit of living in an old order Mennonite community. Everyone's a carpenter. And when the old porch was off the house and this looked like a gaping empty hole, one of my children said, Mama, what's the house gonna look like with the new porch? So I showed them my sketch. And they said, why are you putting a Shakespeare stage on our house? And I was like, I am not. And then I went, it even has a balcony. If you've been to the American Shakespeare Center's Blackfriars Playhouse, you maybe see the resemblance. We have like spaces on 3 sides, 2 levels. And then when it was about half built, so this top part had the deck on it, the children pulled all of these silks that I had in their dress-ups out, and they were dancing with them on the porch. And I took a picture and I sent it to my friend Scott, who's an actor in Michigan, and he immediately wrote back, Silk Moth Stage. And I did not dignify this with a response because I was not going to start a theater company. It's a lot of work. But when I was lying in my bed in the darkness and I felt that buzzing in my chest and I said, what do you want to make? That image and that phrase came to me. And I said, again out loud, interesting, I'll consider it. And for a first time in a long time, those bees kind of settled. I could still feel them kind of humming, but it felt gentle and peaceful, and I slept. So long story short, I couldn't get the idea out of my head, and I eventually started a theater company right here on our porch. I made the theater company I wanted to work with, one that had live music, audience engagement, excellent workplaces for all artists, imagination, and s'mores. One of our first shows was a play called Give Us Good by Pam Mandigo. Pam wrote this show for me as a gift about a decade earlier, and it had never had the production it deserved. This play was about a world where everybody kind of has their own monster, and sometimes your monster gets kind of out of control, and you have to call a monster eater to help you out. And unfortunately, our protagonist calls a monster eater who's bad at her job. And I love this play so much. In part because I felt like every character in it was some aspect of myself, including the monster eater who's bad at everything. And it was a perfect fit for Silk Moth Stage because we used percussion and movement to create the monsters. We didn't have puppets, we just had acting. And also we turned the whole audience into a graveyard because it was like set in a graveyard, and we'd like look at people and be like, ah yes, Jim Jones died, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was funny. One of the people who joined us in the audience for Give Us Good was Monica Flory. She's the person I wrote as to like, what creator do I admire? Because I'm thinking about her today. She's a playwright and a director from Philadelphia. And we had connected on some networking Zooms during the lockdown period. At the first one, I sent her this private message that was like, I swear we've met. Have we met? And we went back and forth about like where we'd gone to school and what stuff we'd done and like all this stuff. We never met in person. But I truly felt like I recognized her in a deep way. She must have felt some connection with me too, because when I had a play here on my porch stage, she came and she brought her husband and her children all the way from Philly to like check out Harrisonburg, what we're doing here. The first time that we met in person was right where that gray chair is, and we felt like old friends. About a year and a half later, I was in DC and I got an email from Monica. She said, I'm working on a play and like no pressure, but it kind of feels a little bit Silk Mothy. I can't stop thinking about this play and Silk Moth stage. Can I send it to you? And I was like, I read a lot of plays. And I'm getting on the metro to go out to Reston where I parked, because why would you drive into DC? And right then my phone kind of buzzed and Monica had sent me this play. And I was curious and had 40 minutes to kill, so I was like, let's take a look. So I pull it up on my teeny tiny little phone screen and I'm just start reading it. And 5 minutes in, I am openly weeping on this train, a crowded train, and like other people are like, babe, are you okay? And like, I think they thought I had gotten some kind of horrifying message via text, but actually I was just falling in love with Monica's beautiful text. I nearly missed my stop. I was so engrossed. So I immediately wrote back to her and was like, okay, no, this is not just a Silk Moth play. This is like the silkiest of Silk Moth plays. And it took us a little while to figure out when to do it, but we did finally perform that play here in 2025. The Wanting Forest is a story about a girl, Aspen, who has to go out into the world and figure out how to live with the curse her mother accidentally placed on her as a baby. This is the one Sarah was talking about earlier. And this curse is that she will always want, always yearn, always search. So we follow Aspen on her journey through the forest, over the sea, along the mushroom-clustered shore, up to a mountaintop and back. In parallel, her mother Mira goes through a series of transformative dreams as her life shifts in response to her daughter's absence. We created all of this with movement, fabric, a hula hoop, and some planks. And we started with exercises just exactly like that one that Sarah led you through at the beginning. One of the extraordinary things about the Wanting Forest, which I realized only after it opened, was that Monica had not just seen and understood what we were doing in 2022 when she came for Give Us Good. She saw and understood where we were going. She heard the theater we were becoming and wrote a play that met us in the future. I also want to name that our set for Above Ground, which is the play we have running now, which you could come see, although not tonight because we're sold out, is the set is really perfect for that show, but it's not photogenic because the play is set in a basement where someone has like cleaning out boxes. Nobody wants to look at that. So I took that all off this morning and I put up this backdrop that Elizabeth Whistler and Heidi Jablonski made for The Wanting Forest. So this is our map of Aspen's journey. One other surprise that came with The Wanting Forest was that it brought me a new invitation. I had a casting challenge. One role that was originally supposed to be played by my creative partner, who was coming from Michigan. And 2 months before rehearsal started, she told me that she was not going to be able to join us after all. And I felt like with this much lead time, it's fine, I will figure this out. Because I had already planned to bring her in from out of state, and I just want to name that most of our artists are local, but we do bring in the occasional person from elsewhere, I had written into my budget and grants space to cover some travel. So I was like, this is great, I can bring in anybody. So I started making calls to actors near and far that I wanted to work with. I talked with a friend in England. I don't remember why, but like tickets from Europe were really cheap for 5 minutes last summer. I explored possibilities with a colleague from Arizona. I wrote cold emails to people I had seen in DC's indie theaters and was like, hey, I do an indie theater. It's in the woods. Do you want to come play with me? I also, of course, talked to many local actors. I reached out to 25 actors. Every single one of them tried hard to figure out if it would work. We had lengthy conversations with calendars and calculators trying to find the logistical fit, and every time I thought, this is the one, this is going to be great, and I'd re-envision the play with that person in the ensemble and their energy shifting it. And 25 times they had to turn me down. This wasn't like, no, lose my number. It was, I tried so hard to make it work and I just can't get it to line up and I'm heartbroken. They all had these strange one-off things they couldn't move. Surgery, going to Italy for the first time, being on the school board. The play that I had imagined with that particular person in it evaporated when they told me why they couldn't do it. I told my best friend I didn't even want to ask anyone else because I kept getting my hopes up and dashed. It was really emotionally and creatively exhausting. Finally, a week before we were supposed to start rehearsals, so like urgent now, I sat right there on the porch stage and I decided to identify the problem, which is a really good exercise I recommend when you don't know what to do. So I made a list of what I actually needed. What is the minimum requirement? I needed a woman over 40 who was not a terrible actor. The other people in the ensemble were like good enough that I didn't need this last person to be like particularly great. I sat here and I looked at this list, and the joke I tell people about it is that I thought, oh, hey, I have one of those lying around the house. But that's a joke. Really what happened was that I sat here on the porch and I listened. I listened to the wind sawing in the white pine and rippling the leaves of the aspen, and I felt a familiar buzzing in my chest. And because I really like sleeping, I could not just ignore it. So I called the movement director for this show, who was also the president of the board, and I said, Holly, please say no to this. And unfortunately, for everyone involved, she said, no, that's exactly what we should do. That's the most obvious solution. Why are we just having this conversation now? So very much against my will, I became an actor as well as director for this show. When I tell people this story, they don't understand what a big deal it is. Most people who are directors get there through acting, but I've never been an actor. I directed my first scripted play for an audience of over 100 people when I was 9 years old. I've never been good at anything else. I've done a fair amount of acting training because when you're in high school and you're like, I want to be a director, they don't have anything for you at theater camp, so they're like, I'm taking an acting class. But I never did that with an idea that I would layer that work into my own body for an audience on purpose. Since I was a teenager, I've built my directing craft deliberately, imagining it as a house that I get to inhabit. Every way of entering the art is its own room. You've got your Lecoq room, you've got your method room, you've got your Le Bon room. Ask me about that later if you're curious about those names. Sometimes I'm kind of like sprucing up a room, sometimes I'm building whole new wings. I've studied acting and studied actors so deeply and so long that I know which room I should take each individual into, given their training and background, the vocabulary that they use, and the way they live inside their own artistry. By listening deeply to them, I know what room they'll be comfortable in. The deep study of acting that I have done has always been with the intention of supporting actors in their work. I have been on stage in, I think, 6 plays, ever. It just never seemed interesting to me, and it never seemed to be where I belonged. I was not pleased to have to be in The Wanting Forest. It felt embarrassing to cast myself, for one thing. I mean, I'm always like, is this a vanity project? Do people think it's a vanity project? If you're a director, every project's a vanity project. I also was sure I was going to be the worst actor. And the awfulness of this situation compounded because I had imagined those words spoken by this other actor, the person who was supposed to be here. She's beyond excellent, and I felt her excellence, which usually is a spark of inspiration to me, as a cold shadow on my shoulder. I was deeply sad that she couldn't come. I refused to talk to anybody about her and about the fact that she was supposed to be here because I cried every time. I felt too much. I didn't tell anybody how miserable I was at this idea because it was the only option. I didn't tell anyone how scared I was because the director's job is to set the temperature of the room, to help everybody feel like they belong so they can do their best work. I had to find a way to do that for myself, or at least to keep my deep feeling of not belonging pushed down far enough that the other actors wouldn't hear it. Acting in The Wanting Forest turned out to be a miraculous discovery. I was shocked to find that I felt at home in this acting ensemble. I mean, I was literally at my house, but I had never felt at home on stage. I was having a great time, and that was a surprise as well. The immediacy of acting is not something I was prepared for. With directing, there's a gap of both time and space between my creation of the work and an audience's reception of it, mediated through other people's bodies and words. Acting is creating in real time, and I loved it. I also was delighted at the feeling of connection in the moment with other actors. Connection with actors is the best thing for me as a director. I'm an actor's director. Connecting actor to actor was both the same and different. In order to act and direct, I recorded rehearsals and watched them later to make notes and tell everybody, including myself, what to do differently. I was surprised to find that I didn't stick out in this group. My lack of actual stage experience was hard to spot, sometimes almost invisible. I was doing a creditable job, and that surprised me. It was like I was in the house of my craft, where I had sanded every plank and framed every window, and I leaned up against a bookshelf and suddenly it rotated, and I was in a room I didn't know was there. And it was fully furnished, as if by a miracle. When I told my best friend about this, she said, "You didn't know that room was there, but you built it. You built it all along through your decades-long love affair with actors. You built it every bit as much as you built the rest of it. You just didn't know. This isn't a gift from an outside force, it is yours." I'm still trying to figure out what to do with that discovery. Right now, I'm listening for invitations to two big questions. First, what does it look like to explore acting further? This is a thing I've never really thought about. And secondly, and perhaps more surprising, what else is hiding in me? What other capacities that I haven't even dreamed of? If what's past is prologue, the next invitation won't be the one that I'm looking for, but it will expand my sense of what I thought was possible. The more I listen for these invitations, the less I have to take initiative. The projects that I initiate often feel like pushing a rock uphill. The ones that I just RSVP to are still work, make no mistake, but they are buoyed by grace and serendipity that makes them joyful, even in the hardest parts. I can't help but reflect with gratitude on this chain of invitations and deep listening. I had an invitation I couldn't understand, and Chris's listening taught me how to listen for it. When I accepted that invitation, it created an invitation for Monica to write in response to this space and what we are creating here. My casting conundrum in Monica's play turned into another invitation that has shifted how I see myself as an artist and as a person. It is all a gift, but it's a gift we each had to notice and accept. At the beginning, Sarah led you through an exercise of following your senses to move around this space and to get to know its contours. I'd like to close by inviting you to close your eyes or soften or lower your gaze as comfortable. Also, we run exclusively consent-based spaces here. If you don't want to do that, it's fine. Breathe deeply. Listen to your breath moving through your body. Listen to the river. Listen to the birds. If you're very, very lucky, you can hear the silk moving in the wind. Try to deepen your listening until you are listening with your whole being. What does it look like to invite an invitation? I'd like to invite you to stay in this space of constructive rest. And I'm going to read a little bit of text from the very end of The Wanting Forest, lightly edited so I can read it without 5 other people. In part, I put this in because it's about listening, and because it's about a quest. And mostly it's about creating, and in part because I just love these words so much. Never happy, never free becomes an invitation, a permission. Mira picks up her sewing for the first time in weeks. She dumps the basket of patches and studies them. In time, she starts to stitch them together, making something warm and ugly. Not what someone would dream of making or carefully plan, but rather what can be made of the pieces that are right there. She keeps adding, little by little, and she finds it beautiful in its ugliness. She feels happy within her unhappiness. She sleeps in the day and stitches by candlelight. Aspen has been gone for many lifetimes. When she returns home, her mother looks at her like she placed every star in the sky, although her clothes are full of holes. Life is hard on clothing. Aspen is patient. She watches to learn how to cut and stitch. And when she pulls the needle from her chest out, she feels an atom of her heart stitch itself to the other side. It is slow. It takes a lot of thread and concentration. Over time, she feels the seam of her heart mend. It feels bumpier, but stronger. The canopy grows green and full above her. Aspen tells her mother, "I love the forest the most, but there are so many other places to love out there. I took in everything. It's like my heart was one little bird in a cage, and now it's a whole flock. It's unfathomable. It's magnificent. This is what I'm cursed to long for. These trees and the songs you sing, and the feeling of my head on this one pillow, and the way you listen to me, and how you care about everything. Something can be so right that you miss it even when you're still in the middle of it. Isn't that true? Is a curse just a blessing in other clothes? Are you making a quilt? She asked her mother. I don't know what I'm making. Mira holds up the collection of patches. It's starting to look a bit like a blanket. Is it warm? Aspen wants to know. Warm enough. And Mira invites her in. Friends, may you all listen for profound invitations.